Hello, this is a message for those students on the module EDU3008. I want you to start thinking about your next assignment. Now I know that some of you are still doing your presentations, but I think you should start thinking about the other piece of assessed work for this particular module. Hopefully all of you have been able to access the module guide, and you'll see that there's quite a lot of guidance that relates to the next piece of work. But I wanted to talk through some of those issues and ideas with you so that you can really start to formulate what it is you're going to focus upon, how you're going to manage your research, and also how you're going to go about writing up the actual assignment. If you have a look at the brief that's in the module guide, I've got a copy here, you will see that the actual submission date is the 30th of April. So I know it's not immediate, but it's definitely near enough for you to be starting to think about this and doing the research and really having an idea of what you're going to focus upon. Now the actual assignment is for a written essay of 2,500 words. Okay, and the title, which is taken from the module spec as I said, is "What are the critical issues related to the successful inclusion of pupils with a specific special needs into an educational setting?" So obviously there are two particular dimensions you have to think about. On the first hand, you've got the specific special need that you want to focus upon, and we've looked at many across the course of the module, not only from what we ourselves as tutors have taught you, but also what you've taught each other through your presentation. We've had some interesting debates about different special needs from the things that you've chosen. So there's a whole range of things. It doesn't have to be something we've actually addressed. You can choose a particular special need that interests you. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is not to just give us a whole essay about what that particular special need is. We want to know, what are the particular needs related to education? How does our knowledge of this particular special need help us when it thinks about how to include these children in an educational context? So you'll have to think about it from those two dimensions: the special need you've chosen and the educational implications of that particular diagnosis or special need. If we have a look at the guidance again, and obviously you can read this for yourself, but I'm just expanding on some of these issues. The first thing is you have to identify a clear and specific need. Okay, so for example, a named disorder, an assessment or a diagnosis, something that relates to a learning difficulty, a diagnosis like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, for example. So you have to be very clear about what it is you've actually chosen. The second piece of guidance relates to the fact that you've got to identify the impact of this particular special need in relation to education. Okay, so for example, what is it about this diagnosis of, say, autism or dyspraxia? What is it that we need to know about how that might impact in an educational context? Now the third thing is that I want to see that you're linking many of the issues to research and the wider literature. What I don't want is for someone to choose, for example, autism, and for one reference to be to the National Autistic Society to define the terminology. That's lazy research, and we've read it all a million times before. What I do want to see is that if you're defining the special need you've chosen, that you link that to a range of different commentators, authors, pieces of research, etc. You can directly quote from them, or you can synthesize from a range of different commentators in order to create your own definitions of the actual topic you've chosen. Okay, if you want a good grade, you're going to have to show a good broad range of literature. Okay, research literature, academic literature, current affairs literature, etc. I'm not expecting a list of websites, because if you do that at this level in your degree, you'll be disappointed with the grade you get. Equally, you have to recognise that there's no one answer to this debate. Do I put a child with autism into a mainstream school? Do I include them in a special unit? Do they go to a DSP in a mainstream school? There are many, many different ways of addressing the individual needs of children. So again, you don't need to say that there's only one way. You need to reflect and understand and show that you can see that there are many perspectives about this debate. So it might be that there are certain pros and cons, or certain complexities, or certain issues you can draw upon so that you can show that the debate that you've presented is balanced and shows a range of different points of view. Equally, you might want to look at it not only from the perspective of the child or the pupil or the young person, but also from a wider range of perspectives. What impact does it have on teachers? What impact does it have on peers and friends? What about parents? What about the wider community? Okay, so you don't have to address perhaps all of those issues, but it would be good to recognise that you can see there are a range of perspectives within this debate. And equally, and the final point here in the guidance, it says that students should be clear about their definition of an educational setting, which might include either mainstream or special provision. And what I'm saying there is, if you're talking about how we might meet the needs of this particular child in an educational setting, be very clear about what you mean. Are you talking about a special school? Are you talking about a special unit? Are you talking about mainstream provision? Okay, so what I'm trying to say is be quite specific and clear about what you're talking about. Don't just say children with autism in schools. That's far too broad. You know, you've got to talk about it in much more precise terms. Actually, this assignment isn't designed to catch you out. It's designed to allow you to focus on something that interests you, obviously a particular special need, because that's the module. Also, you've got to think about the field of education and the impact on education of the particular need that you focused upon. So again, you might focus on things like autism, dyslexia, ADHD. You might look more specifically at diagnoses, things like Down syndrome, more generalist things to do with perhaps specific learning difficulties or learning difficulties in a wider sense. Again, it's totally up to you what it is that you've looked at. We've had people in the past that have looked at physical difficulties, facial disfigurements, mental health issues, and a range of different perspectives as well. So again, be creative and think about what interests you. But the main thing is to make sure that this particular piece of work showcases your skill to be able to find sources and references and apply them to your particular chosen topic. Now, equally, if we look at the learning outcomes, I'm not going to read through these because obviously they're the learning outcomes that are standard to the module, but it will expect you to do exactly what I said, to look at the literature, to look at multiple perspectives, to write correctly, to reference appropriately, and to be very clear and measured in your writing. Okay, you must proofread the piece of work before you hand it in. It must make sense to the reader. Consider things like how you structure and present the piece of work so that myself or Sue, when we read your assignments, it's nice, easy, clear, simple, effective, and gets across exactly what you want to say. Again, what I do, I don't know what Sue does, but what I always do is I go straight to the end of the piece of work and I look at the quality of your references, I look at which sources you've employed and where they're from, and then I go back and look at the piece of work. So again, think very carefully about the research that you're going to do. If you haven't thought about a piece of a special need you're going to focus on, or you want us to just say, yes, that would be a good idea, please contact us or email us. Make sure in the subject title of your email say, you know, which module that you're talking about and your name and what your topic is, so we can respond to you. And also on the very last session this term, Sue is taking both groups because I'm teaching abroad, but after the actual media review of a film you're going to watch, Sue can sort of reassure you if there's any brief questions that you might have. But again, you can email us at any time. But what I do want you to do is to start thinking about this now. If you start to email us or think about this a week before this is due, then I'm not confident that you'll get the grade that you need, because it does rely on you showing the breadth of your reading, the breadth of your research, and the levels of your analysis. Anyway, I'll shut up. You have to think about all of these things. This, if you like, replaces me talking about it in the session, because obviously we're very tight with the presentations at the moment. But hopefully this has made sense. If you do have any questions, go back to the module guide, read that first, and then watch what I've said again, which will hopefully make a lot more sense. Anyway, good luck, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.